I do want to spend most of the time today talking about what was a terrific State of the Union from President Trump. It was historic in the sense that it was the longest of all time. One thing that was noteworthy in the off-record lunch yesterday that I had with President Trump is it was very clear to him that he wanted to convey a youthful, spirited American voice. He's someone who I think thinks of himself as a very young person, even though he's our oldest president, I think, or second oldest after Joe Biden. I don't know what the math is exactly. But one of our older presidents, he does not think of himself that way, and he does not think of our country as a country that's past its prime. He thinks of our country as a place that is growing and thriving, and it is deeply inspirational. And you get that through the screen as he's talking. You get that even more so in person. He is so youthful at heart, but also with deep reverence to our nation's past and our history. I think all of that came through yesterday with a very robust and very long State of the Union address. I, for one, love these things. I think that the theatrics not only are entertaining, even though nothing is binding in the State of the Union, it's sort of a pro forma type thing, but I do think it is one of the ways you can set the tone for the entire year. So I've always thought that this is one of the great benefits of winning elections is you get to set this tone, the State of the Union, and the responses are always so pathetic. I'll have some of that content for you. But the first thing that the president did right, which is I think he had a perfect narrative arc for the speech. His speechwriters were completely on point. Here's the arc, and I think this will resonate with those of you who watched the whole speech. He started out with listing accomplishments, perhaps things that he thought were underrated, underreported, undercovered, and saying these are the things that are happening that are positive in this country. He noted some negative things that he was correcting and put the blame squarely on Democrats, particularly Joe Biden, but also any of his predecessors in the political space. Then he went on to tell both heroic stories about great Americans, whether it be new Medal of Honor recipients, a Medal of Freedom recipient, a Legion of Merit recipient, and then telling the stories of horror stories of Democrat and left-wing policies gone wrong, particularly with regards to open borders, into unnecessary wars. And he was very tough on some of the policies of yesteryear, but he did so via example, not by bludgeoning you just with talking points, but with trying to share the stories of these are the real victims of illegal alien crime. These are the real victims of Islamic terrorism. These are the real victims of domestic violence coming from the left. He did all of that as well. And then he concluded with some real soaring rhetoric about the future of the country and where he intends for it to go. I thought it was a complete masterclass. I think that if you tune in at the beginning, you're going to get all that data. And if you stuck with it, you're going to get more of the performance and more of the theatrics. He was truly at his absolute best, and the Democrats were truly pathetic. They were reverting to yelling, screaming. They had a button that said F ICE, and they'd not used the letter. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar obnoxiously trying to interrupt the whole time. And they had counter programming that was deeply embarrassing. And I've got clips of that I'll share for you as well. Abigail Spanberger, the exact opposite of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is someone who is really a pragmatist. He's really a realist. He's someone who's trying to do the most good for the most number of people. Spanberger was someone who is a deep state person, someone from the spook intel community who came in, ran as a moderate, and is governing as an absolute tax-raising radical who is soft on crime in the state of Virginia. Her response was completely lifeless. It was as if an automaton had delivered it. And there's just obnoxious clapping where they clearly rehearsed the audience to applaud at inappropriate moments. I don't know why they did that or how they thought that was going to work, but it absolutely did not work. Let me give you some of the key points from the speech that I think the president touched on that are worth reiterating. Some of the announcements. He was going to try to end insider trading for members of Congress. And more to do that is always good. We have the Stock Act. We can go further. He says that if we're going to have AI data centers, the electric bills for normal American citizens are not going to go up. He wants $1,000 for every child in Trump accounts. He wants no driver's license for illegal aliens. He started off with some universally recognized wins, things that everyone should agree are part of what he described as a turnaround for the ages. He says we have the most secure border in history by far. I spoke to Tom Homan, who's an apolitical guy. Remember, he won a very important medal from Barack Obama. I spoke to him just a few minutes before going live today. He reiterated the same thing. Zero new illegal aliens crossing. Fentanyl importation in the country is down. Murder rate had its biggest decline in recorded history. And I'll tell you what was such a treat with that is to see CBS News fact check that statement and to give it a truth, that it is true. It is dropping at a historic rate. He took on inflation. He took on affordability. And I think this is also essential that he took on these things because that is the nature of the beast right now. Republicans are making life better for your average American financially, but it is an incremental improvement over the horrific Biden inflation. And because of that, there is a heavy burden of proof on the incumbent, on the party in power, to actually make Americans understand and feel the benefits that's happening. He did take that on robustly. This is a good point for me to note that even though the president, I think privately, and when I spoke to him off the record, he was very keen to tout a lot of his foreign policy and national security successes, be it the taking out of Maduro, being the successful mission against El Mencho in Mexico from last weekend, be it the 8 peace deals he's forged around the world. I think he's optimistic he'll be able to forge peace with Iran, Russia, Ukraine, all that's front and center for him, and he's deeply proud of these things. But what was the focus last night? It really was on domestic issues. It was on policy that the average American person, I think, can relate to. That's why he is highlighting inflation dropping. He tried to give a lot of data on that. Mortgage rates are down and falling fast. He said that we have 80 million barrels of oil coming from Venezuela, which, according to his math, is going to pay for the Maduro raid and then some. And I think it will. I think it's going to make things cheaper. This is something I spoke about with Secretary Burgum just a few minutes ago, and I'll share this with you either on the show or on the podcast. One thing that he did that was so important, is so relevant, is to note that the president is trying to find creative ways to get revenue for the American people. It is not just putting a gun to all of your heads and confiscating more of your tax dollars. He wants money to come in from trade and tariffs. He wants to get more money by clean, beautiful coal, by fracking, by drilling in our country. And he wants to go around the world and forge deals with other energy-rich nations so that we get some of that, particularly in our own hemisphere like Venezuela. He touted private sector job growth. He touted lifting a record number of people off of food stamps. Of course, he was giving out medals of freedom and medals of honor this way and that, touting no taxes on tips and trying to highlight some people who benefited from that as well. Expanding the child tax credit. This is good. We want family formation. This is important to me as an individual because I feel like I want America to survive and I want us to be able to recreate, to be able to confidently procreate as Americans, and that child tax credit, that's going to help people. We've got an economic turnaround that he wants to hammering affordability, taking that on robustly, trying to do things like the most favored nation's drug policy. This is something that I think is so important. I talked to Marty McCary, the FDA secretary, about this, again, to be released at a later date. The most favored nation's drug policy means that Americans are going to be getting the same drug prices as all the developed world. This is going to allow for more innovation. It's going to allow for you to save money. And I think it's going to allow for a more streamlined medical process, which is very onerous, very bureaucratic. And we're trying to revive that doctor-patient relationship that was the cornerstone of American healthcare and was completely ruined during the coronavirus and the subsequent, I would say, the way the drug companies and the health insurance companies took advantage of the situation. So much more to come from this. J.D. Vance is going to be running a war on fraud. It's just so much good stuff happening in this country, and it was really great to see the president